with that being said, we can kind of open it up a little bit. Abel, if you want to say a few words on the fight coming up with Willie Monroe.
Yeah, we're extremely happy to be back here in New York. Thank you for the support. It's getting bigger and bigger. We appreciate that very much. We've been training now for about 4.5 weeks in the sparring part of the training camp. So May 16th should be another dramatic night. Gennady likes to put on good shows, so that's going to be another great night.
Tom, why Willie Monroe Jr.?
Why Willie Monroe? Because first of all, Miguel Cotto wouldn't accept the challenge. Gennady's actually is mandatory from the WBC. Part of the agreement was that Cotto would get one voluntary defense before he had to fight Gennady. That was meant to fight Canelo. That fight never happened. So then we were trying to put that fight together, but we never. The WBC will still give him one voluntary defense. It looks like now he's going to fight Daniel Gil, who Gennady fought last year here. So Willie Monroe made the most sense. He fought on ESPN 4 times within the last 12 months. He won the Boxino tournament, and he's from here, from upstate New York. So he's known in the United States. And the funny thing is, and Oleg, Gennady's manager, can explain it also. Gennady wants to test himself. He hadn't fought a southpaw since his HBO debut against Froch, for Poland, and so he wanted to. Willie has a very unconventional style. When I called Artie Palulu, his promoter, he was surprised that I would call him and ask for a southpaw specifically. But that's what Gennady wanted, and Abel was on board, and he wants to perfect his style against any different style.
Triple G, what do you know about Willie Monroe Jr.? What do you know about your opponent?
He's a good fighter, I think he's difficult for me because he's he has good speed, good move. Remember, everybody is a good boxer. There's a problem with southpaw. Canelo with Cuba guy, Miguel Cotto, he has problem with throw, southpaw. This new style for me, new situation. I think a little bit different. I won't be in any style. Just new style for me.
Gennady, do you ever get frustrated that some of these superstars won't take the fights against you?
No, I think so. No, I understand my situation. I have great. I feel it's great. I know I have time. Not a lot, just time. I think next step is much better. Right now just my focus on Willie Monroe, of course, 100%. And after I think so, I have a big step. I have 4 fights this year. Why not?
Do you ever picture yourself getting to a point maybe where you're so frustrated? Because I can't even picture you swearing. I can't picture you angry, frankly. You ever ponder maybe you're going to get frustrated and call out one of these guys and say, "Come on, be a warrior, be a man, and fight me"?
This is my life. Why I'm not mad, I'm not angry, because this is my life. I like my life.
Gennady, do you have what's your interest in this fight this coming week with Mayweather and Pacquiao? And could you see yourself possibly facing Why not? Would you like to?
Biggest fight, biggest deal. Of course, anybody wants to fight, with number one pound for pound. Yes, of course, this is my dream fight with Floyd or with me. And I understand I am 160, these people 147, maybe 140, 154 just for Puerto for many. This is a big deal.
Gennady, tonight your countryman Vladimir Klitschko, the heavyweight champ, he's fighting Brian Jennings. How do you see that fight taking place, and then where do you rank Klitschko among the all-time great heavyweights?
Oh, he did a very good fight for heavyweight. Klitschko. Vladimir, he's great champion for him, long time. He's bigger, he's stronger. Jennings is not good prospect. He's good fighter too, absolutely. He has chance. I think very interesting for everybody.
were fighting a lot in Germany, right?
Yes, first time, yeah.
How do you feel the difference between Germany and here in the United States?
Big difference. Big difference. The United States is make of boxing, you know. In Germany, this is my first step, my debut. It doesn't matter in Germany or in Kazakhstan or in Russia. You know. It's real boxing in the United States, just in the United States.
Yeah, in what ways do you honor or respect what Vladimir Klitschko's done and how he's carried himself?
Absolutely, yes, because you know, he's the guy. He's big champion. He's a very smart guy. You know, he has good team. And he's big name for boxing for heavyweight, not for me, for everybody, just for heavyweight.
What kind of relationship do the two of you have?
No, just, you know, he's a good champion. I, you know, just thank you for Tom. Tom worked with Cotto, you know, I work with Tom.
How do you feel about having your family here? Does that help you, having your family in LA?
My family, my wife, she understands my business. This is my business, my deal, you know. I'm very happy because my family is close with me, you know, just stay in California. My son, it's very important for us, for me, for my family. He goes to school, it's very cool.
Are they happy here?
Absolutely, yes, very happy.
What are your guys' plans to take advantage from a marketing sense of how beloved Gennady is with the Triple G brand nickname and the catchphrases? What is the future for that? Whether it be T-shirts, whether it be that kind of stuff.
You know, it's funny you mention that because a lot of people think that somehow that's planned or pre-planned, but it really isn't. You know, when we had the promotion last year against Rubio, you know, I came up with that name only because Gennady in his interview with Max Kellerman said, you know, when Max said, you know, how does he fight such aggressive style, and Gennady says, yeah, I fight the Mexican style. That's what Abel taught him. You know, and then that was just a natural fit. So when he comes up with these, you know, phrases in the interviews, it's just really just off the top of his head. It's not anything that's really planned. But the fans are so passionate, you know, and they just embrace those type of phrases. And even with Gennady's, you know, Gennady's English is getting better, certainly, but he still, you know, throws out very poignant phrases, just like with Curtis Stevens. When Curtis Stevens was saying all these things at the press conference, then he said, you know, are you serious? And then whatever, you know, those three words were much more important than whatever Curtis said. So, but you know, I haven't really, you know, the demand for merchandise and just anything related to Gennady has really taken off, and you know, as his popularity not only here in America, but you know, really a big part of the game plan for Gennady, because as he alluded to, he doesn't care where he fights. He fights internationally. You know, we've made it clear a number of times. He would go to England to fight the great champions over there, whether it's Andy Lee in Ireland, whether it's Carl Froch in the UK. You know, and so internationally, you know, his TV ratings off the Murray fight were some of the highest that have been on an international event, and so that's his plan is to, or our plan is to build his global brand.
Gennady, how long have you been living in Germany?
I think 7 years?
7 years.
7 years.
7 years. Well, wouldn't it be because Germany is going a bit down in boxing? You lived so long in Germany, came back as super down from the States, now fighting in Germany, one of those guys, Sturm, Abraham, Stieglitz. Question to Tom. That's the interesting fight for you. I think the Germans would love you to see you in a style which is completely different to those in Germany.
No, I open for fight for anyone, for everybody. Just this big step back, you know, like going to Germany for Sturm. I think it's better for Sturm coming to the United States. Because the United States is boxing, this is number one, this is first class. Going to Germany, white Germany, maybe better than Monaco or Kazakhstan, because I'm champion.
To answer the question, Hardman, he tried to get Storm to fight him for 2 years when he was a mandatory for the WBA title, and we couldn't work it out with the WBA. So, sure, if the opportunity presented itself, if one of the guys said that they would fight, it would be interesting. But right now, Gennady's star has risen above all of them. You know, Sturm, Stieglitz, Abraham. He's, you know, on all the pound-for-pound lists. He's considered one of the best boxers in the sport and one of the most marketable boxers in the sport. What you have to keep in mind, in perspective, is he headlined Madison Square Garden last year, and now he's going to the Forum, which is a big arena in Los Angeles. And it's really the only boxer, and he's not native of America. He's from Kazakhstan. So to sell a big arena in New York and then go to the Forum in Los Angeles is a big accomplishment. And so, you know, the first choice would be to have the big names fight him, but if we had to go somewhere like to the UK or if it made sense in Germany, certainly would entertain it. But I think he's above where those fighters are.
Gennady, did you have a chance to watch the Andy Lee and Peter Quillen fight?
Yeah, I saw the fight.
What you thought about it?
It's question. I never see, I never see it's interest for me. It's fire. And they said it's WBO champions fight, you know, like, excuse me guys, it's never like new for me. Yeah. Never see it new for me, like Andy, he won. No, it's good. Right hand, beat it too much weight, no, too much stages. No injuries. For me, it's very boring.
Yep.
It's true.
Abel, what did you think of that fight with the Andy Lee and Quillen?
Well, I think they're a step below Gennady, for sure. I thought that Andy took the fight to Peter. Peter just waited too much, and that's what Gennady and I talked about. It made it a boring fight for two champions fighting and waiting for as long as they have, as long as Peter had, and doing what he did in the past with relinquishing his belt. We felt that Peter needed to make a statement, and Peter didn't. He keeps calling Gennady out. Everybody keeps calling Gennady out, but when they fight like that, it's difficult for us to get excited about facing him. Andy would probably be the one that would be exciting for us because he'd be going to Ireland in front of his all his fans there, so Gennady would get motivated for that. It's got to be at this level for Gennady. It's got to be something that motivates him to not necessarily to train because he trains hard, but for the fight, for it to be a spectacle, for it to be a dramatic situation. That's why it was a little bit boring and not exciting for us to sit there and watch it.
So, follow-up question then for you, Abel. Who would you say are the top challenges for Gennady at 160, if there is anybody?
I think that both, again, and I agree that Cotto is the biggest challenge for us because he wants the WBC belt. Andy, of course, the winner of the Endam and Lemieux fight, whichever guy wins, Lemieux is a heck of a fighter, and if he beats Endam, then we got a good challenge. But for right now, I think the target for Tom and for our team is Cotto. Until he says no, until he relinquishes the belt and Gennady fights for the WBC belt, then we go on to the next one. But that should be our next goal, I think.
Abel, following up on that, you talked before about a dream match or an ideal match for Gennady with Chavez. Chavez just coming off a bad loss, so now his career is kind of at a crossroads. Is there any other fighter, other than Cotto, obviously, that is like an ideal matchup, that big pay-per-view matchup that you see for Gennady in the future?
For Gennady, let's just say his dream match is Mayweather. Mayweather gets through unscathed on the second, and he decides to move up. Gennady's willing to come down to 54 and meet him. For us now that Chavez got beat, I think Chavez is on the back burner for a couple fights maybe. I think Froch in England would be ideal for us. I think that he represents a lot of good things as far as what he's done in the past, and for Gennady, it's a good step.
And you guys would be willing to go over there and go all the way to 68?
I think that's up to Oleg and Max and Tom. Gennady has already told him what he wants to do, so that would be them setting up the right situation for us. And yeah, of course we'll go over there.
Abel, if the WBC were to allow Cotto to fight Canelo Alvarez for some sort of silly super championship, and the regular WBC championship became vacant, would you still want that title, or would it mean less if Cotto refuses to fight Gennady?
I think that Tom and Oleg and Max have dealt with the WBC and have got something set up with WBC. I don't know what is.
They're going to sanction the fight against Gil, but they won't sanction the fight against Canelo unless they have our approval because it's clear that Gennady is the next mandatory challenger after he makes one voluntary defense.
What would it take to get your approval?
We've been approached by Rock Nation already to try to work something out with Cotto. So it just depends on if there's something that's acceptable to work out. I mean, the first thing would have to be that either whoever wins that fight would have to guarantee to fight him, which so far they haven't. And the second thing, there would have to be some significant financial compensation to Gennady because he put himself in that position to fight Rubio, and without that, it wouldn't make any sense.
Tom, with boxing coming back to network TV this year and the long-term potential of that, where does Gennady fit in with that plan?
I think it's great. I think it's great that the boxing is back on network TV, on NBC and ABC, and then Spike was last night, and I think it just raises the awareness of the sport. When you have the sport being elevated, and then you have Gennady being considered the best in the sport, it just raises everyone. And the more marketable challengers that we can create for Gennady, the bigger events, the mega events. People have to put in perspective that Gennady's become as popular as he has by fighting, quote unquote, B-level fighters. But we've always tried to get the best available guys in the ring at that particular time. Daniel Geale was a two-time world champion. We saw what Gennady did with him. Curtis Stevens was a tough guy from New York here, and we saw what happened with Stevens. And same thing with Murray. Murray dropped Sergio twice in Argentina and gave Sturm a very tough fight in Germany. And then Gennady won pretty much a shutout and stopped him in 11 rounds. So we constantly seek, and the same thing with Willie Monroe. We think Willie Monroe's style is challenging for everyone. It's going to be, Gennady has 19 knockouts in a row now. It'll be a challenge for him to see if he can cut off the ring and really slow down Monroe, or if Monroe can outbox him. So that's really the challenge. And then if we can get a Cotto, Chavez, we almost had that fight last year. Unfortunately, he lost to Fanfara, and he's pretty much, his career, is a little bit sidetracked right now. Froch certainly is a big challenge. So, whatever the biggest, Canelo's has a big fight coming up in 2 weeks. If he wins that fight, as Abel alluded to, Lemieux or Ndam, it's really, HBO, and Peter Nelson's not here right now, but they weren't used to when we first had the meeting. They had a list of like 20 names from middleweight, super middleweight, and said, okay, which one of these, if we make a strategy, which one of these guys don't you want to fight? And I went, talked to Oleg, I talked to Max and Abel, and we proved the entire list. And that's something that they weren't used to, and that's why they've been so supportive of Gennady, because he'll fight anyone, anytime, and it just has to be a motivation for him. And now with HBO's financial support and the amount of tickets that he sells and the gates that he generates, we can make a substantial offer to get other middleweight fighters into the ring with him.
Tom, follow up to that question. Is that an avenue you could ever see Gennady going down, being that the audience is just so much more than HBO and Showtime, and his ratings would probably be double or triple what he gets on HBO?
Well, HBO has certainly created Gennady's star. They put him on a platform that has given him that exposure, and we have an exclusive contract with HBO. I mean, certainly, in order to try to make one of these fights, I mean, you saw what happened with, coming up next week with Mayweather and Manny. So, if there's a really big fight out there, I'm sure there's something that can be worked out. But, he's going to be pretty soon on a pay-per-view level, and that's what's going to generate the most amount of money to get an opponent in the ring with him. And that's really, I think, the direction he's going into.
Tom, you were mentioning Miguel Cotto working with Rock Nation and whatnot. What about Andre Ward? Is that somebody that is still on his radar?
They've approached us also with Andre Ward, but they made it clear that they wanted to have a couple of fights, comeback fights, which I suppose this fight is coming up in Oakland. I think it's June 20th or something, 27th. And it'd be great. It'd be great for Andre to get back in the ring. He's been off for a while. He had some promotional issues and things like that. But if Rock Nation can get him back to the point where he was in the sport, and if that becomes, a big fight, and there's no reason not to fight Andre Ward. It's just that he's been out of the ring, and when people ask him, would he fight, Gennady, he says yes. And when people ask Abel or Gennady if they fight Andre Ward, he say yes. It's just making the financials work. And so far, Andre hasn't really brought the same amount of money, that Gennady brings right now. So If he kind of gets back in the swing of things, his popularity gets back up there, then there's no reason not to make that fight.
What do you make of the 172 weight for that fight, which seems to be moving away from Gennady instead of getting closer?
I think he wants to take over Chavez's weight class. I just found out about that today, so I don't know. I mean, he's a 168-pound champion, and certainly, we have a lot of respect for Andre, for what he's accomplished. He beat a lot of named fighters in the past, but that's a long time ago. I mean, right now, Gennady is the hot fighter. He fights, 3 times, 4 times a year whenever we can make that happen. And, with his ability to sell tickets and generate TV ratings, he's the one that all the focus is on right now. So you don't see him, going in catch weights and things like that. The only way that would ever happen is if he moved out of his category, his weight class, to fight a bigger name fighter that's above him. Or, as he mentioned, he would move to 154, but only if it was a super fight like against Floyd or Manning, and that's a tremendous fight coming up next week. With Rock Nation, we have a cordial relationship. I've known Dave Itzkowitz for a long time, ever since he was at HBO. So it's a cordial relationship. It's just a matter of if we can put that fight together to put the fight with Miguel Cotto. And Joel will tell you, Gennady Golovkin versus Miguel Cotto is probably one of the biggest fights that that's possible, if not the biggest fight at the Garden.
He's going to guarantee if it happens, it's at the Garden.
Well, it has to be. It has to be at the Garden. There's no other place that would make sense to hold that fight. But that would be a huge fight here in New York, and it doesn't get much bigger than that. So that a guy like Cotto, that would be pay-per-view. That would be Gennady's first pay-per-view. Cotto sells tickets to the Garden. Gennady has proven that he sells tickets to the Garden. So that would be a mega fight. Financials wouldn't be a problem in that fight.
Tom, when you're talking about financials, what are your thoughts on Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. getting $4 million to fight Andre Fonfara?
I saw the tweet about the checks and everything. I'm not sure exactly what each check was for, but that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money for a Fonfara fight. It's not as much money as he was offered to fight Gennady. I know for a fact that Top Rank offered him $7 million, and they guaranteed him $5 million if he lost the fight. Now, I know there's probably a lot of other terms in there that I wasn't privy to, and I don't want to talk for Chavez, but I know they offered him a lot of money to fight Gennady, and we weren't able to make that deal.
Abel, how much are you looking to add to Gennady's game each fight, as opposed to just refining, keeping him strong after each one?
The reason that we're fighting Willie Monroe is because Gennady wanted to make sure there was something different coming up for him, that it motivated him. The other 2 guys that were mentioned just didn't have the difficulties to them. So that, to answer your question, that was one of the things that is going to move to another level for us. We're going to try to work on something to capitalize on his strengths and Willie's weaknesses. But because he is a southpaw, it forces us to change some things and to add some things to our game.
Abel, is it hard to get?
Absolutely not. Knockout comes, as his favorite saying, this is boxing. If it comes, it comes. If it doesn't, it doesn't. He's going to go in there and work like he always does. He works hard in the gym, and he's going to go in there and take the first round off and see what he's got, and then go from there. And if it comes, it comes. I've said in the past that I don't think anybody at 160 pounds stays with Gennady for 12 rounds. Murray almost proved me wrong. I don't think Willie will.
Abel, was it hard to get southpaw sparring partners for Gennady for this fight?
No, we have a nucleus of guys that we use a lot of the times, and it's Gennady's work in the gym, not so much the sparring partners. Gennady's technical work in the gym that allows them to work and allows them to do the things that they need to do to benefit us. Gennady allows that in the gym. He's not an abusive kind of guy, so those guys get to work and get to help us in a way that is going to improve Gennady.
Well, he's knocking these guys out. We're giving him A+ grades, but you're obviously a harder judge as his coach. Are you giving him the same level grade for each fight?
Actually, I'm easy. He's the one that's hard on himself. No, he's the one that expects more and more and more. And that motivates us as a coaching staff and as a management staff to make sure that we give him those things to keep him motivated. But no, we work hard in the gym. He works hard in the gym, and it's an easy job for a coach when a guy performs in the gym the way that you want him to and questions nothing.
On the outside, Gennady seems such a good-natured guy. How do you transform him, or how does he transform into what he does in the ring?
This is Gennady Golovkin here that you're talking to. When he steps to the rope, he becomes Triple G. Big difference. Yes.
Gennady, what is Triple G inside the ring? Who is that? How is he different?
Serious professional sportsman. I think so. Professional sportsman. Not killer, not like just professional sportsman. I like my sport. I love my boxing sport. I know I understand my situation in ring. It's my job, it's my life.
Did you say professional sportsman?
Sportsman, yes.
Gennady, how did you get involved in the world of boxing?
Well, his brothers actually took him to the gym and got me about 10 years old.
Yeah, 10 years old.
Yeah.
Everybody goes to the boxing gym. Maybe like Mexican, like everybody goes to boxing gym. Sometimes I work with soccer, basketball. Everybody to boxing gym. They go too.
Kazakhstan and Ukraine. These are countries that have a lot of powerful boxers coming out right now. A lot of boxers.
I know Kazakhstan. I know Ukraine. I know Kazakhstan.
Excuse me. Where your powerful KO comes from?
It's my natural power. It's hard work every day. It's discipline. And special thank you very much for my coach.
Yeah, but
I saw you in a Monaco versus Ishida, and it was spectacular. I mean, your KO is something more than just powerful. It's hungry, something else, something more.
It's my style, It's my class.
Thank you.
Monroe doesn't have much power. Is there any reason you can't just walk through it?
Everybody has power, speed. Not very important, just power. It's timing, moving, like a distant position. It's very important position. I saw he's a lot of fight. He's very good moving, not dancing. He's a smart guy.
Hey, what do you think is the biggest thing he needs to improve on?
English?
To answer, to go back a little bit to her question, and the power of Monroe, anybody can be knocked down or anybody can be knocked out. The one thing that was so much fun for me as a coach when Gennady came is he practices a move and he practices a punch 1,000 times. It just seems like he goes over and over and over to perfect it. So the power, yes, he had natural power when he was born, God-given, but his trying to perfect every positioning, the technique, the discipline, not to vary it, I think is where the knockout comes from. Yes, the power helps, but I think it's his discipline of the technical end of it.
Gennady, do you bring your son to the boxing gym a lot? Does he enjoy putting on the gloves and taking part?
I think so, no. Big difference for him. His life is very easy, my life is a little different. Not for me. He likes tennis. He likes baseball. I don't know.
Let me go a little bit. His son was visiting in camp one day, and we're training, and it's dark outside, and we have a door where we have a garage door that closes everything off. It's like a big glass door, and it's dark outside, and the gym is really lit up. So it's time to close the door. So I go over. He's sparring inside the ring, and I go over to close the door. And as I'm bringing it down, his son's maybe about 3.5 feet tall. And as I'm bringing it down, I see somebody looking at it like this. Like I pictured a kid at a Yankee baseball game looking through the fence, looking through that. It was so pointed, yeah.
Yeah, he like game. Boxing is not game, it's fight. Sometimes I remember if you go to kindergarten, the teacher called me, just, Gennady, nice to meet you, you professional boxer? I says, yes, you know me? She says, yes, of course, because you saw in common, and like, small fight outside, he says, my papa champion, I'm champion too, boxing champion. Wow! Son, please, this is not game, this is fight, please stop. Right now he understands, he says, I like game, and I don't like fight.
How has your family adjusted to moving to California?
It's perfect, yeah, it's, they're happy because close to me, and California is beautiful weather, beautiful life.
Is there anything you miss about Kazakhstan or Germany? Anything about living in the U.S. that has surprised you?
Good question. Big difference for Kazakhstan, for Germany, like United States. I don't feel stressed. I'm very happy because my family is close to me. Just I don't feel bracing. I'm very happy. Just very easy for me. I like United States. I like, of course, my Kazakhstan. I like my position right now. I feel relaxed.
So I think we'll let everyone order their lunch now, and then we can follow up with some one-on-one questions after that.
Thank you.
Remember, it's May 16th on HBO, live from the Forum against Willie Monroe Jr.